Well, hello friends. Welcome to the Ladybird browser update for January 2024. It's been a lovely month in the project. We've had lots of bug fixes, new features, and all-around activity going on. And it's time for the monthly update. This time I want to start a little bit differently by looking at how we've made a new website work this month, step by step. And the website we're looking at is polar.sh. Polar is a creator platform for developers, sort of like Patreon for developers. It is also the platform that we use to allow people to sponsor specific Ladybird issues for development. So at the start of January, this is what it looked like. Just a big white rectangle, although you can see the window title is correct, but nothing else. And I eventually debugged this and figured out that we were missing the ViewBox API on the SVG element. So after I implemented that API, the page started looking like this. So much better. We can now load the page, but of course, there's a lot of layout and painting rendering issues going on here still. So the next thing that happened was that MacDo implemented support for nested SVGs, which is when one SVG element has another SVG inside of it, and they have perhaps different ViewBox attributes so that you have these nested viewports, and that's something that we previously just didn't handle correctly. MacDo implemented it, made the logo appear. If we go back, you can see the logo on the top left there is popping into place, and same thing with the star on GitHub icon. And then but it is still a big mess, right? So the next thing that made it all good was CSS overflow clipping fixes from Alex. So this is what it looks like today, and the site is really nice. Loads fairly fast. We can do better, but layout is almost entirely perfect. So this is pretty typical, a thing that happens every month, that we have some website that doesn't work, and then we start to make progress by one person improving it a little bit, and then another person comes in, and another person, and together we all improve one little thing that brings the whole thing together in the end. And I think this is just lovely when this happens, so I wanted to highlight such a thing. So thank you to MacDo and Alex for fixing this website with me, and shout out to Tim as well, who fixed a crash that we had with Readable Stream on this website. Anyway, we've been doing a bunch of other stuff as well, so this was just a quick look at polar.sh improving. So next, let me just tell you quickly about JavaScript. This month I did some work on bytecode interpreter performance, because last year when I started building out the JIT compiler, I added a bunch of optimizations specific to the JIT that could be generalized, but were not. And this month I went back and I took some of the JIT optimizations and just backported them to the bytecode interpreter, basically, and was able to get 10% speed up on the Kraken benchmark just by backporting those optimizations. So that's pretty solid. Still a lot of work to do on bytecode interpreter performance. We are very, very slow still, but one step at a time. 10% is a respectable improvement, and we just need a whole lot more 10% improvements in the coming months. Anyway, we have a whole set of new CSS properties this month, or more like CSS property values, but we now support justified content, a bunch more values, align content normal. Those were mostly broken in grid layout. They kind of worked in flex layout already, but Alex implemented better support for all those alignment properties in grid layout, so shout outs to Alex. And Sam added transform box, which I didn't even know about before this month, but transform box allows you to more specifically say which box is used to apply a transform to an element. So it can be like a content box or a border box, but also stuff like view box and some other values. So thank you, Sam, for implementing transform box. Speaking of transforms, we also have a bunch of new transform functions. We have perspective, scale 3D, scale Z, and rotate 3D. I think these were all added by Bastion. So they are essentially like values, functions that you can specify with the CSS transform property. Note that we don't render these correctly. If you're using the CPU rasterizer, you have to run with the GPU rasterizer for the stuff to look correct. Nevertheless, thank you, Bastian, for working on CSS transforms. And I made a slide for this little optimization I did because I was so happy with it. In the 1990s, when I was a little boy, we used to sometimes do this trick where we wanted a specific background color and only that color. We would make a little 1x1 pixel bitmap and tile it all over the page to make sure that we would get the right color. And there are still websites out there that do this. Perhaps they are made by old web developers like myself from a different era. I don't know, but this is the thing that some websites do. And we were very slow at painting these pages because we would just tile that 1x1 bitmap a million times, which, especially when running in GPU mode, that was a lot of texture blitz that we now turn into one single simple rectangle fill instead. So it's a kind of obvious optimization, but it was a huge performance improvement on the websites that do use it, such as the osdev.org wiki, which is where I originally ran into the issue. Anyway, just wanted to mention this. It's a very cute little optimization. We also have a whole boatload of new APIs. Of course, we do have new APIs every month, but I still wanted to make a slide with some of the new APIs we've added. So we got a bunch of stuff on Readable Stream. I think that was Tim who added those. I added SVG element viewbox for the Polar to load at all, as we saw earlier. Stellar 7 did subtle crypto and crypto key stuff. Bastian added the mouse event constructor and some DOM matrix and input element stuff. And Shannon did some of the element attribute manipulation stuff. And it is really, really nice to see new APIs coming in every month. We're kind of fleshing out our support for the web platform and the web APIs. And there's a lot more APIs that we need to add, but one step at a time. We keep adding them. Support for the web keeps growing. So thank you to everybody who added APIs, and gold star to everybody who added tests for the APIs as well, because that is very, very important as we mature our engine, that we increase test coverage now. It's something that, a year ago we were not great about, but over the last year we've kind of switched more and more to a development style where more and more of our changes include tests. And it's been a change, but it's been a really positive change. I think it gives you more confidence to work on the engine. So just wanted to mention that. Nested SVG support is new this month. I mentioned it when showing you the Polar change, but MacDo implemented nesting SVGs within SVGs. We also support use element yoinking a symbol or an SVG from a different context. Even if that yoinked subtree has a viewbox, we now nest those viewports correctly. And we can also do XY positioning relative to the parent SVG in a nesting context. So all of that really, really nice to have. And SVG is definitely an area where we are pretty bare bones in our support. But because we're sort of developing it based on the needs of real websites, even though we don't support large parts of the SVG spec, we still end up being able to render a lot of SVG content. And these changes from MacDo this month, I would say dramatically grew the set of SVGs that we're able to render. So that's really cool. Another thing that I'm pretty excited about is native WebGL on Linux and Mac OS. So until now, we've been using our own homemade OpenGL implementation, the libgl library from Serenity, which is a software emulated implementation of OpenGL that we've made ourselves. And this month, Alex went and decoupled our WebGL implementation in Ladybird from libgl so that we now are able to use the native OpenGL library on the platform. So on Linux, we use EGL, and on Mac OS, we use CGL, I guess. So this, of course, opens up for hardware accelerated or GPU accelerated WebGL. And we can't do much exciting stuff yet. We can do some rectangles, but there is more to come for sure. There are some complications ahead, sadly, because Linux is pretty good about allowing you to get a WebGL compatible GL context from the system GL libraries, but on Mac OS, for example, you can't get, I think it's OpenGL ES2 that WebGL requires, and you can't get one of those compatible contexts from the OpenGL system on Mac OS. So what other browsers do is that they add a layer on top of the preferred native GPU library. So I guess on macOS it would be Metal. So then they put a thing on top that sort of emulates an OpenGL interface to Metal, and that's a whole thing. And I don't know if it's in our future to build something similar, or what we're going to do about that. But it's something that we're going to have to deal with eventually. In the meantime, though, just being able to continue development of WebGL on Linux, at least, allows us to expand the stuff in the web engine that isn't specific to underlying GPU interfaces and stuff like that. So very, very cool to be making some progress in this area. Last month, we added input type range support. Bastion did. And the only thing was that you couldn't actually move the sliders. You could only look at them and their predetermined values. But this month, Bastion has continued the work, and the sliders are now interactive. So we can drag them. Of course, this is just a still picture in a slide, so I can't show you that. But trust me, you can actually slide. And now I've talked a bunch, so let's go look at a quick demo. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the websites we've been working on this month. The first one I wanted to show you is gimp.org, the website for the photo editing software, of course. I worked on a bunch of the text layout stuff here, in particular this menu, making that look nice, and also on their news article layouts. And it's honestly gotten pretty good, I would say. There are a handful of little issues, but performs and lays out pretty nicely. Next one I want to show you is on Twinings, one of my favorite websites, where this month I did some work to make the shopping cart work. So it should now be possible for me to add something to the shopping cart. Let's go and get some Earl Grey. And let's see if it takes a little bit too long to load these pages. I would like to improve that as well. Okay, here we go. So let's add some 120 tea bags of Earl Grey to my basket. And we do see that it shows up here. Oh, there's a bit of a horizontal scroll. But it is now in the basket. And I can't actually click on it for some reason. We need to investigate why. But I know that if I go to cart, then I should be able to see it in the basket right here, indeed. So it is in the basket. I don't know. Oh, I can edit the quantity. Very, very cool. And I should also be able to proceed to a checkout, although I think we will crash at this point. Yes. So there's still work to be done on the checkout flow here, but making good progress. And hopefully eventually we'll be able to order some tea. Next, let's look at polar.sh, which I already mentioned. I just want to show you how it actually looks when it loads live. So we can see that stuff is fading in here with CSS animations. Look, there's Serenity OS. We are indeed using Polar to allow you to fund specific issues. And yeah, the page looks really, really solid all the way through, I would say. Although now we have apparently disappeared here, so maybe I spoke too soon. It seems like we should investigate what that might be. And we should also have a sort of a user profile And I did work on this page as well this month, although I didn't have a screenshot in the intro. But yeah, there should be a list of issues here which are currently open for funding. Can I get to it, I wonder? Does it not want to let me? Okay, yeah, issues looking for funding. So we have a bunch of issues open for anybody who wants to tackle them and collect a little reward. I can see that this page actually needs a little bit more work. Seems to get a little bit wider than it should be. Anyway, yeah, so very, very nice to have this website actually working in Ladybird, although obviously some little bugs to investigate. Next thing I want to show you is my old friend Oliver. He has a website with some of his little JavaScript experiments and stuff from back in the day when we worked on WebKit together. And I like to come here sometimes and try his old JavaScript tests. So one that looks pretty cute now is his particle generator. This is a JavaScript thing, canvas thing that just generates particles, and you can create these little gravity wells to make the particles gravitate towards. And it is really nice. It's just something that I put a little bit of time into making sure that it performs well enough that it looks reasonably fluid, although we are apparently at 40-ish FPS here, and I'm sure we could do better with more work on both Canvas and JavaScript. But yeah, I just like the way this looks. I'm really big fan of these old demos from like 2008 to 2012, where people started doing stuff, graphical demos, just for the heck of it with JavaScript and HTML. Anyway, the next thing I want to show you is Rasmus's website. So Rasmus is famous designer, and he made the Inter font, which I like to use everywhere. Inter typeface, I should say. Sorry for saying font, Rasmus. And he, on his website, he has a lot of stuff. In particular, he has a page called Stuff, which is sort of a random media collection. And this is an excellent stress test for our engine, because this is loading a lot of images. And this month, we actually got this page to load and perform somewhat. Like, you can actually scroll here, even though I'm rasterizing on the CPU right now. We're able to scroll all this stuff, and we can filter by type. So let me actually filter down by GIF, and maybe I will open a GIF, and let's see if that loads. Nice. It does load. Yeah, so we got this page working, although it still struggles with very long GIF animations, so there's work to do there. But it was fun to do one of those stress tests and see some progress on stuff like that, because we do spend a lot of time on more like realistic, real-world web pages. And this is a real-world web page, but it is also a stress test, which does a little bit of unusual stuff. So it's fun to improve those kind of situations as well. Anyway, nice. And that's everything I wanted to show you today. Thank you so much for checking in and staying up to date with the Ladybird project. It is an amazing project to be part of. I'm so proud of the progress that we are making and the team that is working on it. It's the most fun I've ever had, I would say. And it is just awesome. And if you would like to work on Ladybird with us, we are always open to new developers. Come join us on Discord if you want to chat. And if you just want to sponsor development in some way, you can find links to, well, you find links to Discord and to sponsoring opportunities in the video description below. And thank you so much to everybody who has been working on it. And thank you to everybody who's sponsoring somebody working on it. It's just great. And last year was awesome. This year is going to be even awesomer. And we're off to a good start. And there's a lot more really awesome things to come. So I will see you all next time.